As you may or may not know, my wife and I just got back from Vegas. It was a great trip. We ate, we drank, we had a blast. But then we got home and looked at the credit card, and I gotta say, it doesn't matter how much fun you're having, $25 for a drink is a ripoff. Frickin' Vegas. I hate getting ripped off, and so do the lads over at Harry's. They spent years watching the razor blade companies rip people off and said, no more. Not all heroes wear capes, my friends, and they want to prove that they're legit by offering you hot dogs a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. I've been telling you about them for months, and I'm genuinely proud to have Harry's as a sponsor of this show. I wasn't kidding. The plastic, futuristic-looking crap razors you get at the store are overpriced and they're poor quality. Harry's blades are crisp, clean, and classy. They're the kind of razor you'd expect your grandpa to have on his bathroom counter. And most importantly, they work. Shave after shave, they're so smooth, they're precise. I used to go through the crappy store blades all the time, but Harry's are built to last. And they're not just better quality than the other names, they're more affordable. And they deliver. Just set your schedule, and for as little as $2, new blades, shaving creams, lotions, everything you need, right to your door when you need it. I genuinely cannot think of a reason not to try Harry's. And I'm not just saying this because they're sponsors. They're the best shaving supplies I've ever used. Try them out, and if you're not happy, your shave's on them. And unlike the other subscriptions, they're really easy to cancel if you want to too, which is a nice bonus, but believe me, you're not going to want to cancel. Getting ripped off isn't funny. Switch to Harry's. Get started with a $13 trial set for just $3 at harrys.com/RTG. That's harrys.com/RTG for a $3 trial set. Hey everybody, as you've probably heard me plug on Remember the Game, we have a Patreon full of hundreds of extra podcasts. The library over there has gotten massive, so I thought I'd start giving away a free episode every once in a while here on the Remember the Game feed. If you enjoyed this episode and want more of these, subscriptions start at just $2 a month, and you'll get a new expansion pass every Thursday. We also have a gaming news show called Game Patch every Friday, my vlogging podcast, The Rambling Idiot, every Tuesday, and a bi-weekly Simpsons podcast called Purple Monkey Dishwasher that launches on March 6th. This episode is expansion pass number 65, my game of the year for every year from 1985 to 2020. This episode originally went live for Patreons on June 26, 2021. Thanks for listening to the show, and I hope you enjoyed this free episode of Expansion Pass. Let's go. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 65th edition of Remember the Game Expansion Pass. It is one of our Patreon exclusive weekly podcasts here at Remember the Game Industries. Finally fucking nailed it. Hell yes. My name is Adam Blank, and if you're hearing my voice or maybe even seeing it right now, at some point you've decided Remember the Game Industries is worthy of at least $2, yens, pounds, rupees, Stanley, nickels, shroot, bucks, whatevers, of your hard-earned money, maybe 3 billion tiddlywinks, because I think tiddlywinks carry a slight monetary value in certain places. Either way, man, I like tiddlywinks. Anyways, thank you so much for the support. I appreciate it. Thank you for listening or watching the show. And this week, for episode 65, it is one of our exclusive poll-winning topic episodes. The last expansion pass of every single month is the topic for the last expansion pass of every single month. Pardon me. I've had like 3 sips of beer while I'm recording this, and it's... Anyway. The topic this week was decided by people at our junior executive vice president level and up over on Patreon. You guys get to pick the final topic for Expansion Pass every month. We ran a poll. It was very, very close. It came down to the wire, but the winning topic this week, and obviously the subject, is my game of the year for every year from 1985 until 2021. And I'm not going to lie to you, this was a substantially more beefy undertaking than I expected it to be. But honestly, It was so it might be my favorite episode, at least to do the research for. We'll see how it works out in execution, but doing the homework and going over all the games that came out every year from 85 to now was a fucking blast. It took a lot longer than I thought, but this was a great time. It was a great trip down memory lane, and then seeing the progression where 85, 86, there was only a few games, and then to fucking 2018, for example, where there was just tons and tons of games. It was a really good time. I did not work any of the listener comments into the episode this week. I'll explain why when we get there. And just quickly, I wanted to point out before we get into your peek past the podcast, a couple of topics that you guys suggested that didn't make the Patreon poll this month. One was biggest plot twists. And that's become a regular suggestion from a couple of people every month. And I really like that idea a lot. I just don't know how that would work when in an actual podcast form, because first of all, I don't want games I haven't played spoiled for me. And second of all, I don't want to spoil games that maybe you guys haven't played for you. And if we're doing biggest plot twists, it literally is going to be just a giant smorgasbord of spoiler, a spoiler smorgasbord, a smorgaspoiler board. Smorgasbord. Anyway, it's going to be way too many. So I don't think we're going to do that episode. And for all of you that have suggested it, don't think I'm shitting on your idea. I think it's a fucking awesome idea. But there's just no way to do it without spoiling something for either me or anyone listening. Like if I subscribed to a podcast and they did an episode like that, I would probably skip it, not because it doesn't sound fun, but because I'd be worried about finding out that X and Y died, or turns out so-and-so was the bad guy the whole time, or what have you. And those both reference games that I know would come up in that episode. Some of you might even know exactly what games I'm talking about. So thank you for the suggestion, but we are going to sit that one out, even though I think it's awesome. And also someone suggested that we do another Confessions episode because they thought that the last one was so funny. Thank you very much. That's coming, but we're going to do it in the fall. I want to put it like a year from the time we did the Confessions episode last year and just kind of make that an annualized episode of Expansion Pass moving forward. So that is coming. And then finally, the other topic suggestion I wanted to bring up was biggest gaming disappointments. Just barely lost the poll for the second time in a row. A lot of the topics that lose Expansion Pass polls are eventually going to find their way onto the show. I steal a lot of those ideas because I think they're awesome. And we'll definitely do biggest gaming disappointments at some point. But I actually think it's fucking hilarious that the topic of biggest gaming disappointments keeps getting disappointed and just coming up short in our poll. So I kind of want it to never win. But so keep suggesting it. I'm going to keep putting it on the poll and we'll see how long it can almost win our Expansion Pass topic poll, because I think it's awesome. But thank you for all the topic suggestions. We are doing Game of the Years every year from 85 to this year. For this week, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And we'll get there in just a minute because, as you know, part of your Patreon perk is a peek past the podcast here to Remember the Game. So if you could just put some sunscreen on and have a quick shower before you get in the pool, I'll show you what's been happening around Remember the Game Industries this past week. Maybe use the bathroom before you get in the pool, too. I never understood why that wasn't. I never understood the shower because I get in principle why they say have a shower before you get in the pool, but I know lots of people don't. And I know a lot of people that do, they fucking turn the water on. You know, they hit that little, that like spring loaded fucking lever or whatever, that button that makes the water come down, and they get under for like 3 seconds and then they're like, I'm clean. And then they get in the pool and it's kind of gross. But I really think that making you use the bathroom before you get in the pool should be one of the signs because we've all peed. Don't bullshit. Anyone that's sitting there listening to this right now criticizing me for admitting that I've peed in a pool, you are an asshole because you know you've done it too. All right? Anyways, I didn't expect this to go there. So, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I don't have too much to tell you in the intro this week, in your little peek past the podcast. It's a fucking heat wave everywhere across Western North America. So, you might be able to hear my fan in the background. Sorry, I should have mentioned that about 4 minutes ago when I started recording this. If you can hear it, my apologies. I tried to turn it off so I could record this, but I'm sitting in between 3 computers in front of a giant window, the one little air conditioning vent that doesn't do much up here, and it is fucking hot. So I would rather the quality of the podcast suffer a little bit than my quality of life suffer a little bit. I think that's really what it comes down to, is I'm putting me ahead of the podcast. Once again, take another sip of beer here. So I need the fan on. Maybe you can't hear it. Hopefully you can't. Stay cool and stay safe if you were on the west side of North America this week. I'm not sure if this goes right down into like the southern U.S., but I know British Columbia, Alberta. I know the northwestern U.S., like down in Washington and stuff, it's pretty hot. So stay safe, stay cool, stay inside a little bit, take care of each other, look out for people that are in distress. Be easy on your dog. Don't fucking make them walk too far in this shit. I feel bad for poor Molly, because I think she thinks she's getting punished when she doesn't get her normal walks. I just took her for one before we recorded this, and we basically went up and down the street. I was like, dude, it's too hot out here. I'm not doing this to you. So hopefully it gets back to normal soon. I like the heat. For the record, I want to clarify. I'm not, because some Edmontonians complain when it's too cold. They complain when it's too hot. They complain. I don't hate the cold or the hot extremes, because the cold extremes are an excuse to stay inside. And I like a little bit of heat, but I will say that, like, it's hot. We don't get this hot that often. Like they're saying this could be like a record-breaking week for the Edmonton region. I don't know. I think lots of other places too. So I'm not complaining, but just be careful. That's all. What else have I got to tell you guys? I finished the Yuffie DLC last night for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I'm just going to share a couple of quick thoughts here. I originally was thinking maybe I would do an episode of Expansion Pass on it, but the whole thing, I almost 100%ed it, and I think it took me 7.5 hours. And there's like a mini game that you can play. There's only 2 chapters. There's a mini game in the first chapter, which is fucking awesome. But that if you skip that, then you probably beat this in 4.5 hours, 5 hours tops. I just don't think there's enough there to justify its entire episode. So just to give you my really quick thoughts, I'd probably give it like a 7 out of 10. 7.5. Playing as Yuffie is awesome. I really like the way that she handles, because much like Tifa, Barrett, Aerith, Cloud, I guess we don't control anybody else in the first one, but Yuffie handles differently than all the rest. Just like they all have their own unique stylings. I found her a little bit annoying, but she's like 16, I think, in the game. She's a teenager, so she probably is supposed to be a little bit annoying. But it was good. It actually really had me just foaming at the mouth to play Final Fantasy VII Remake again. Now that I've got the PS5 upgrade, I don't have time to do that, but I might do it anyways at some point. So anyway, if you're on the fence about it, I bought it. I think it was $25 Canadian for the DLC. I don't feel ripped off, but I would also, now that I've done it, I would wait for a sale on it. So if you have not bought it yet and you want to play it, I would just recommend waiting until it goes on, maybe, $5 or $10 off, then pick it up. Also, keep in mind, they don't teach you fucking anything. Like, when I fired it up, they're like, yo, we're assuming that you have played Final Fantasy VII Remake and you know how the combat and stuff works. And so in the early going, I was struggling because I haven't played Final Fantasy VII Remake since it came out last April. So it took me a good half an hour and, a dozen fights or so to kind of just get the gameplay mechanics back down. But once I did, I was like, oh yeah, this Final Fantasy VII. God, I love Final Fantasy VII Remake. So those are my quick thoughts. Like I say, 7.5 out of 10. It was fine. New story content, kind of. I don't entirely understand what's happening in it, but I'm sure it'll make sense down the road. I also picked up Mario Golf Super Rush yesterday, being Friday. I have not had a chance to play it yet as of Saturday, but I will probably have played it by the time you hear this, which will be Sunday. But I have not turned it on yet. I'm looking forward to it, though. I think we're probably going to do a review of that coming up. The Montreal Canadiens are in the Stanley Cup Final. Fuck yeah. They won on Friday to book a trip to they won on Thursday. Yes, they won on Thursday, and then the Tampa Bay Lightning won on Friday, so it is Montreal versus Tampa Bay in the Stanley Cup Finals, which start on Monday, and I am excited like you can't fucking believe. That was why a couple of streams got canceled last week. I was busy with Shaylee, and also I really wanted to watch. I am not missing. They have not been to the finals since 1993. I'm not fucking missing a game of this. But they start on Monday. They don't, to the best of my knowledge, they don't play Tuesday. I can't imagine they're playing back-to-back. So Tetris Tuesday will happen this upcoming week, which would be what, the 29th? Yes. And I'm going to apologize a little bit for the lack of streams, but I knew this was coming, and that's why I kind of said I wanted people to stop. I'm getting rid of the subs and stuff like that. I'm just going to stream when I want to stream now. And I was planning to stream on Saturday, being the day I'm recording this. But as I'm recording these words right now, it's just after 1 o'clock. It is usually when I would go live to stream on Twitch. And I just finally am sitting down to actually record this podcast, and I have to edit it. And then quite frankly, like I'm looking at my computer, it says it's 30 degrees outside right now, and which is hot. And my deck is in the shade until about 5 p.m. And so I'd really like to spend a little bit of time on my deck. I'm just going to read a book, maybe drink another one of these wobbly pops that are quite delicious, and just enjoy the sun. So, yeah, good stuff. But I'm in here recording this first before I go sit out there and drink my beer, even though I would like to be sitting out there drinking my beer, because god damn it, I care. I'm contractually obligated, and I'm really excited for this episode. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. And I don't really have much else to oh yeah, next week's expansion pass, I'm probably going to review Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. It'll be same as most of my other modern game reviews. It'll be spoiler free, and then I'll probably throw a short spoiler cast in at the end. But that's probably going to be episode 66, which will go live a week from the day you hear this. If you hear this the day that this went live, which is a week before the Ratchet and Clank. Anyway, you get it. All right, good enough. Let's get this thing started. I'm going to cue up some music. There it is. And when the music stops, I will hit you with my game of the year for every year from 1985 to 2021. Holy fuck. Let's go. Okay, so a few house cleaning, housekeeping, whatever, a few little guidelines before we get into this. First and foremost, I'm 100% sure I'm going to miss something. There's going to be a year where there's going to be a game that I forgot, and I was like, God damn it, how did I not think of X and put it in there, all right? So I did the best I could. I need to give a shout out to gamicus.fandom.com, gamicus.fandom.com, because they have a list of like every game that came out from every year, and that was where I went. And they were missing some. I noticed a few that were missing, especially once you get into the last 10 years or so, where there's just so many fucking games coming out. But it was a godsend. It took hours to do this episode because, I mean, even if you don't count 2021, because I mean, I'm going to tell you what my tentative game of the year for 2021 is, but as of right now, it's June 26th. As there's half a year to go, we know most of the bulk of this year is coming in the last half of the year. So I can't imagine that I can pick my game of the year for the year yet. But even if you count 2021 out, that's still 35 years. 1985, I guess 36, because 1985 would count as a year, right? 8, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 90. Yeah. Anyway, that's like over it's almost 3 dozen. Almost 3 dozen. Don't drink beer while you podcast. I've had like 3 sips of beer. It's like 35, 36 game of the years. And so to go back through all those years and find all those games was a lot. So this took a long time to get ready for, which is why I'm not reading comments this week. You guys know that most weeks I love to read listener comments and mix them into the show. I did not add them this week because I just don't know how I would have done it. Like, what would I have done? Gone on the Patreon and been like, what are all your games of the year for every year for the last fucking 35 years? And then mixed them all in. I had thought about splitting this into like decades, and that way I could read people's comments and stuff. But this was the topic that won. I think this is going to play well because, quite frankly, I'm only going to spend a minute or two per year, and we're gonna I have a reason for that. And I'll get there in just a minute. But I'm only going to spend a minute or two per year and rip through every single year. So I do think that maybe in the future, we were talking about this on our Discord this week, I will probably dedicate some episodes of Expansion Pass to either specific years or like the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s. And we'll pick like the best games and let people. So I'll give everyone a chance to do it at some point down the road. Another point I wanted to make is if these picks contradict any of my previous ranking episodes, like maybe I ranked Game Y ahead of Game X on my favorite games list of a certain console, but then I picked Game Y or Game X instead as my game of the year. There's no room for logic here at Remember the Game Industries. There's no continuity here. This is like, you know how in The Simpsons, Homer seems to have a new job every week, but then the next week he's back at the power plant? That's what we are here, which I'm never going to age. I'm always going to be 10 years old. Maggie will never talk, and my rankings will never make sense. So just for the record, all right? And if I didn't play it when it came out, but I have played it since, it counts for the year that it came out in. Like, and there's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, just argument's sake, and it actually I can't remember if it won my game of the year that year or not, but Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. I fucking love that game. I didn't play that game until last year. But whatever year it is that it came out, which we'll get to when we get to that year in the chronological order, it's a contender for that because it was coming out in that year. I can't remember when I played stuff. So, yeah. And finally, in the last couple of years, when I actually started awarding a game of the year on the podcast, it just went to the game that I liked the most. So I think that's what this is going to be. It's not going to necessarily be the best game of the year. It's just going to be the game that I liked the most. If Little Adam had given a game of the year in 1992, this is the game that would have won it. And I'm not counting games I didn't play. Okay, so just for Red Dead Redemption 2, Grand Theft Auto 5, those games won tons of Game of the Year awards. I haven't played them, so they're not in the running for my Game of the Year titles for those individual years. Okay, so I'm only going to spend a minute or two per year, and the reason I'm doing it that way is I think it's going to be a lot of fun for everyone else to see it too. As I was working on my notes for this, like when I started in 1985 and 1986, I really only had like 1 or 2 games to pick from, and then you just see the growth of this business and how many games started popping up. And I really want to kind of rifle through so that it's got that flip book effect where you see like the way the hobby grew from this little seed into this giant fucking forest of video games that it's become now. So we're going to rip through these. All right. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And as you picked, we are starting in the year 1985, which was frankly the easy. Well, no, it was the easiest one of any. Oh yeah. Sorry. I should have pointed out too. We're going by the North American release dates, not like particularly like a lot of Nintendo games came out in Japan before they came to North America. So if a game came out in like, 1994 in Japan and then 1995 in North America, then it counts for my 1995 game of the year because I wasn't playing video games in Japan. All right, okay. Let's go. 1985. This was easily probably the easiest one of all. It's Super Mario Brothers for the NES. I don't even really see anything else that I'm going to put on my contenders list. As you're going to see as we get further into the years, I've got 4, 5, 6, maybe the odd year where I have like 7 games that are like in the hunt for the title. But the first few are quite simple. 1985. Super Mario Brothers. We just covered this on episode 150. I jerked all over this game. I will continue to jerk off all over this game. Super Mario Brothers. 1986 was pretty fucking sparse. This was actually one of the hardest years. Probably the worst game of the year I'm going to pick. There was not a lot here. There were some big drops in Japan, but they didn't come to North America. So, fuck. I really did look at the list to be like, am I sure this is what I want my 1986 game of the year to be? But my game of the year for 1986 is Balloon Fight for the NES. And before you fuck you. If you haven't played Balloon Fight, fucking play that game. That game is surprisingly fun. I played the shit out of that game when I was a kid. I fucking love Balloon Fight. Maybe it'll get an episode of Remember the Game someday, and I'll give it like a fucking 9 out of 10 just to irk a bunch of people that hate on Balloon Fight. I think Ice Climbers was in that year too. I don't remember. I really like Ice Climbers too, but even if it wasn't that year, 1986, Balloon Fight. Now, 1987, this was the first year where there was some competition. And admittedly, it just came down to 2 games, 2 NES games. It was the original Mega Man or the original Legend of Zelda. And I was like, fuck. Because those are both really good games. But the simple fact of the matter is Mega Man 1, while still a great game and very playable today, I don't find as enjoyable as I find the original Legend of Zelda. So, 1987 Game of the Year goes to the one that kicked off one of the most iconic I guess they both kicked off the most iconic franchises, at least in my books. But my Game of the Year for 1987, the original Legend of Zelda for the NES. Now, 1988, this is where it started to get good, because now already here, I went from 1985, I only had 1 game. 1986, I had 1 game. 1987, I had 2 games. 1988, now I've got 4 that are all contenders for my Game of the Year. All NES games, Bubble Bobble, there's my one voice crack, Bubble Bobble, Contra, RC Pro-Am, Super Mario Brothers 2, and not the Lost Levels, because we didn't get that back then. The Super Mario Brothers 2 with Toad and Princess, the Freak games. And I feel like depending on my mood, any of these 4 games could become my 1988 Game of the Year. That sounds so funny to say. But you can see the NES is starting to hit its stride here. I love all 4 of them. I think I got to go with Mario Brothers 2, though. I mean, I like Bubble Bobble. I like Super C more than Contra. I love RC Pro-Am. You know what? RC Pro-Am is probably the runner-up. The problem with RC Pro-Am, for anyone that's played it, that yellow car fucked it out of a Game of the Year. Yeah, speed your way to that. And anyone that's played it knows exactly what I'm fucking talking about. So my 1988 Game of the Year is Super Mario Brothers 2 for the NES. 1989. Listen to these nominees for 19... This was like... To me, this is the first year that I was like, wow. A Boy and His Blob, which admittedly is not going to win. Batman for the NES. Mega Man 2 for the NES. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the NES. Super Mario Land for the Game Boy. Tetris for the Game Boy. Oh. And it comes down to Tetris and Mega Man 2. And I can't not give my 1989 Game of the Year to Tetris on the Game Boy. I can't not give it to Tetris on the Game Boy. And fucking Mega Man is a 2-time runner-up, and it's only been 4 years of my awards so far. But I'm not giving out awards based on like, well, it could have won a couple years ago, so I'll give it to him this year. This isn't like the Oscars or one of those awards where people eventually get their due. I'm just taking a sip here. This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Everyone that listens to this podcast knows about our illustrious CEO, my dog Molly. But the other silent partner behind the scenes is my wife. And let me tell you, my friends, a 17-year relationship with another person that has to talk to and live with you is a lot harder to maintain than one with a dog. We've had our ups and downs, and as you all know, a relationship isn't all sunshine and rainbows. They can be a lot of work. You get out what you put in when it comes to relationships, and talking to a therapist can be a fantastic way to put in some work. They can help you work through your issues, learn to communicate better, and even just provide you with an ear to bend when you need it. I've talked to my therapist about my relationships, especially when it came to my stand-up comedy career and how much I was away from home, and they helped me work on ways to keep my relationship strong even when I was out on the road. It turned out our relationship was actually better when I was out on the road, but that's a story for another day. And I know, right? Therapy. Who has the time these days? BetterHelp hears you, and they're making it easy. Fill out a quick form online, and they'll match you up with a therapist that suits your needs and that'll work around your schedule. You pick the meet times, and you can get your therapy fix from anywhere, over video, phone, or just chat. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit BetterHelp.com/rememberthegame today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/rememberthegame. Tetris for the Game Boy is, what the fuck? My phone's ringing. I hope you guys can't hear that. I'm not answering. I don't even know who that is. I'm not answering that. I don't answer my phone even when I do know who it is. Anyway, it's 420-6881. If that's one of you guys, I'm not answering your phone. Okay, 1989 winner, Tetris for the Game Boy. Mega Man, 2-time runner-up already. 1990. Here, now again, much like 89, you can see where the NES, like that trajectory is just, now the NES is fucking on, just balls to the wall. It is flying. Listen to the list of nominees for my 1990 Game of the Year. Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, Dr. Mario, DuckTales, Mega Man 3, Super Mario Brothers 3, Super C or Super Contra. Wow. And like you can see how the quality's improving already. And that's why I wanted to do this year by year and only take a minute or two per year. You can just see the evolution of gaming and like, dude, what a year, 1990. That's like 6 fucking Chip 'n Dale, DuckTales, Dr. Mario, Mega Man 3, Super Mario 3, Super C. That's 6 of my favorite NES games of all time. All in 12 months. I can eliminate Chip 'n Dale. I can eliminate DuckTales. I can reluctantly eliminate Super C. And I love Dr. Mario. I put Dr. Mario half a tier under Tetris. I love Dr. Mario. But I can't, in all good conscience, put Dr. Mario ahead of Mario 3 or Mega Man 3. I gotta... I'm going to go Mega Man 3. I think Super Mario Brothers 3 might be a little bit better game, but if I could only play one of these games for the rest of my life, it would be Mega Man 3. I've said it many times. I think Mega Man 3 is one of the... I mean, Super Mario 3 is one of the best Marios. Mega Man 3 is one of the best Mega Man... This was hard. I'm going to go with Mega Man 3. This is how I'm sure a lot of you feel when you play 1, Remake 1, or Race 1. I want to give both of them Game of the Year, but I fucking can't do it. So, Mega Man 3. 1991. I think most of you that know your gaming history know what game is going to be my Game of the Year for 91. I just wanted to quickly list off a few of the honorable mentions. F-Zero, Final Fantasy II for the Super Nintendo, Super Castlevania 4 for the Super Nintendo, Toe Jam and Earl, my first Sega nod, fucking rights, and I'm so proud that it's Toe Jam and Earl. And I mean, out of those 4, Final Fantasy II would probably be my Game of the Year, but that means that the Super Nintendo is out, and if the Super Nintendo is out, there's a little game called Super Mario World, and this was the easiest one of all, despite the fact that it had some stacked competition from some games that I really love. Super Mario World is my Game of the Year for 1991. It's my game of eternity, I think. So, you guys know exactly how I feel about Super Mario World. 1992. Now it's starting to get funky because now we have the NES, we have the SNES, we have Sega Genesis, and we've got the Game Boy, all fucking contending for these spots. Just because I know some people will point it out if I don't. Echo the Dolphin came out in 1992. Not a contender for my Game of the Year. Maybe my shit of the year. Maybe. But my contenders for Game of the Year 1992. Kirby's Dream Land for the Game Boy. Mega Man 4 for the NES. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And honestly, until these last 2 games came up, I think I probably would have given my 92 Game of the Year to Sonic the Hedgehog number 2. But Super Mario Kart, The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. And you can be the most diehard Sega fan in the world. Well, I guess maybe if you're the most diehard Sega fan in the world, then you're going to give it to Sonic 2. I like Sonic 2, but it has to be Link to the Past. Has to be. It's my favorite Zelda game ever. I fucking love that game. But honorable mentions to both Super Mario Kart and Sonic 2. To be honest, I would probably put Sonic 2 as my number 2 game of the year for 92 after The Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. I really do have I've really grown to, I don't think his games are perfect, but boy, I have such a soft spot in my heart for Sonic the Hedgehog. And I think I agree with most people that until Sonic Mania, Sonic 2 might be the best Sonic game, but it doesn't matter. Legend of Zelda Link to the Past is fucking, might be my number 2 Super Nintendo. I don't know. It's right there. I love, anyway. I'm not going to say I've already ranked my Super Nintendo games. You can go back and listen to the episode of Expansion Pass if you want. But Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past is my game of the year for 1992. 1993. I got to be honest with you guys, not a banner year for the Super Nintendo, which surprises me a little bit. My contenders for my 1993 game of the year are Doom for PC, of all places, Kirby's Adventure for the NES, Shining Force for the Sega Genesis, Streets of Rage 2 for the Sega Genesis, and Zombies Ate My Neighbors for the Super Nintendo and the Genesis. This is a historic year for me, 1993, because my game of the year is a toss-up between 2 Sega games, Shining Force, Streets of Rage 2, followed by probably Doom on PC. What the fuck? Oh, little 1993 Adam, 10-year-old Adam would just be like, dude, what the fuck, Sega games and computer games? But it's true. Yeah, my 93 game of the year has got to be Streets of Rage 2. That fucking, God, that game is so fucking good. So I might have bet money coming into this that a Sega game would not win one of my game of the years, but it fucking did it. Shout out to Streets of Rage 2, my 93 game of the year. 1994. Now, when I went through the list of games that came out every year, I found them in alphabetical on that order, on that website. And I get through the A's, the B's, the C's. Nothing jumps off the page. I see lots of games that I like, but I'm only putting games on the list that I would legitimately maybe even give a hint of consideration to being my game of the year. A, B, C, D. And on D for 1994, Donkey Kong Country pops up. And I see that. I type it into my computer, and I'm like, everything else that comes out is going to be incredibly hard-pressed to beat Donkey Kong Country. Then in the M's, we get Mega Man X. That's my favorite Mega Man game of all time. Then in the S's, we get Sonic 3 and Knuckles, which I actually think is a really cool combination. I've always thought that was like the coolest combination. Then we get Super Metroid. Then we get Super Punch-Out! And I was like, holy fuck! That's 4 of my favorite games of all time. Donkey Kong Country, Mega Man X, Super Metroid, and Super Punch-Out. Plus Sonic and Knuckles, which I've always had this weird fetish for with the lock-on technology. I actually had to think about this one for a minute when I was working on my notes. It fucking rips my heart out to not name Mega Man X, Super Metroid, or Super Punch-Out my game of the year for 94. It has to be Donkey Kong Country, though. Has to be. Maybe my favorite platformer ever that's not Mario. I love Donkey Kong Country, so it has to be my game for 94. 1995 is all Super Nintendo again. We are right in the fucking pocket of the Super Nintendo's glory years here. Listen to these contenders. Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy's Conquest, Earthbound, Mega Man 7, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. Whew. Based on 1994 and now 1995, listen to those, like, did you hear those? Like, fuck me. Those are 8 of my favorite Super Nintendo games. All eight of my top 20 from that list I did where I rank my top 20 SNES games. And they all came out within 24 months. Imagine 8 of your favorite games of all time coming out in the span of 2 years. Today. Like, imagine between now and the summer of 2023, 8 of your favorite games of all time. Not 8 games you like. 8 of your legitimate favorite games ever fucking come out. That's, whew, Christ. So, I got to pick a game of the year out of this. I probably put Mega Man 7 at number 4. I love Mega Man 7, but I like Yoshi's Island, Earthbound, and Donkey Kong Country 2 better. I think my favorite game of those 3 is Earthbound. I think Donkey Kong Country 2 is the best game of those 3. Yeah, I think my game of the year, I'm going to go with Donkey Kong Country 2. Diddy's Conquest. So that's back-to-back Donkey Kong Country wins. But I mean, Donkey Kong Country 2 is probably better than Donkey Kong Country, and Donkey Kong Country was a game of the year. So what an incredible pair of games, man. But just shout out to Yoshi's Island, Earthbound, and Mega Man 7. I love all of those games. So now we're into 1996. Now things start getting a little bit more funky because there's a couple more consoles on the table. We still have Super Nintendo games. Donkey Kong Country 3, Dixie Kong's Double Trouble, Super Mario RPG, Legend of the Seven Stars, Kirby Superstar are all contenders for my 96 Game of the Year. PlayStation has popped up with Resident Evil and Crash Bandicoot, both contenders for my 96 Game of the Year. And then Nintendo 64 comes along with a little game called Super Mario 64. Wow, like, do you see how much harder it is? Listen, that's 1996. 10 years ago, in 1986, my Game of the Year was Balloon Fight. Now it's Crash Bandicoot, Donkey Kong Country 3, Resident Evil, Mario 64, Mario RPG. Holy Christ. These 3 years, 94 through 96, have me wanting to just dedicate an episode of Expansion Pass to each of those 3 years. This is why I think the 90s were the golden age of gaming. So many great games. So what's my game? Donkey Kong Country 3 is out. Kirby Superstar is out. Crash Bandicoot is out. Resident Evil reluctantly is out. It's Mario RPG or Mario 64. And prior to replaying Mario 64 on Mario All-Stars, it would have been Mario RPG without even thinking twice about it. But I just don't think I can't not give Game of the Year 1996 to Super Mario 64. I can't. Fuck. I'm sorry, Mario RPG, but Mario 64 is my 1996 Game of the Year. Now, 1997, this is where the list of notable games that I have not played started getting a little longer. Castlevania Symphony of the Night popped up. Diddy Kong Racing popped up. Command & Conquer popped up. They're not contenders on my list because I'm sticking to games that I have played, but I'm starting to see more and more games now where I was like, I wasn't keeping up. I wasn't playing all the big gems, right? My contenders, honestly, like, I only have 3 contenders out of 1997. They're just 3 beasts. And that's Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye 007, then Final Fantasy VII for the PS1. Those are the notable ones. God bless GoldenEye. I love GoldenEye as much as the next person, but my Game of the Year is either Final Fantasy VII or Mario Kart 64. I feel like I like Final Fantasy VII a little less now than I did in 1997, but I was really into this game when it came out. I remember buying the game in magazines up to its release and reading about it, and then reading about whether or not you could revive a certain character, which you all know who it is, when they died, and all the crazy rumors floating around on the internet about Final Fantasy. Like, we just spent so many hours, me and my friend Mike, fucking around with Final Fantasy VII and playing with materia combinations and seeing what we could find. And I think it's a little overrated by today's standards, but my Game of the Year for 97 has got to be Final Fantasy VII. I have to give it to Final Fantasy VII. 1998. Listen to this fucking lineup, guys. Like, and every year after this, like, they just get so much harder. 98 is, this might be as stacked of year as there's been for contenders for this. Banjo-Kazooie, Metal Gear Solid, Pokemon Blue and Red, Resident Evil 2, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, WCW NWO Revenge. That's 6 fucking... Jesus. Now, I know The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time is a runaway pick for a lot of people. It's not for me. I respect it, but you all know I don't love that game. So it's out. Revenge is out. Banjo-Kazooie's out. It comes down to Pokemon, Metal Gear Solid, or Resident Evil 2, I think. I just don't know how I can't give Game of the Year to Pokemon. I mean, I may not love the series as much as some people do these days, but anyone that grew up with Pokemon Red and Blue, you know how special that era was, right? So, yeah, Pokemon Red and Blue is my night. And dude, shout out to Pokemon Red and Blue, because that's a Game Boy game competing with PlayStation and Nintendo 64 in 1998. That's fucking pretty incredible. So yeah, I'm going Pokemon Red and Blue. 2 RPGs in a row, Final Fantasy VII, and then Pokemon Red and Blue. I would have never guessed 2 RPGs in a row would win my Games of the Year. 1999, honestly not quite as stacked as 98. I'm really, at this point, looking at the list of games that came out, starting to realize how many games I didn't play and how many games I still have to play to catch up. And it's fucking a little bit intimidating, but also awesome to know how many big games are out there. Listen to this. PlayStation, PC, Nintendo 64, and fucking Dreamcast are all represented here. Final Fantasy VIII. Shut up. I know some of you hate it. I like that game. Mario Party. Roller Coaster Tycoon. Sonic Adventure. WWF WrestleMania 2000. Maybe Hell is Frozen Over. This is probably the only PC game that even had a chance at one of my awards. My 1999 Game of the Year, actually not even that hard to pick, is Roller Coaster Tycoon. I played so fucking much. We did an episode, Remember the Game, about this in like the 30s, I think. I adore this fucking game. So to this day, I love the original Roller Coaster Tycoon. So yeah, there's nothing else on that list I could put ahead of Roller Coaster. 1999 Roller Coaster Tycoon. The year 2000, right at the tail end of the original PlayStation, of the of the Nintendo 64, and you are getting some bangers. Listen to these 4 games. There was only 4 I even considered, but these 4 are so far ahead of them. Final Fantasy IX, ahead of everybody else, Final Fantasy IX, Perfect Dark, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, WWF No Mercy. It's like a tag team match because you have Final Fantasy IX and Tony Hawk Pro Skater on the PlayStation versus Perfect Dark and No Mercy on the Nintendo 64. And I know some of you played Tony Hawk on the 64. PlayStation version's better. Fight me. All right? I think this one comes down to Tony Hawk and No Mercy. And as much as I like Perfect Dark and Final Fantasy IX, it comes down to Tony Hawk and No Mercy. And I'll tell you guys, like, I wanted to give my 2000 Game of the Year to Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 so bad. And because I was going alphabetical and I hit the T's, I see Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2, and I'm like, oh, it's a lock. W comes after T, and then WWF No Mercy came up, and I was like, I was like 16, I turned 17 in the year 2000, and most of that calendar year, I spent playing these 2 games. Like, I really want to make it a tie, and I can't. This might be the hardest. Fuck, this is like picking between Mega Man 3 and Mario 3. I'm fucking sorry, Tony, but it's WWF No Mercy. I have to give it to WWF No Mercy. I do think as a whole in the general gaming community, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 would be the Game of the Year that year. I just have too many fond memories and too much time spent with WWF No Mercy to not give it my Game of the Year for that year. It's one of the most special games in my life. Just the memories I have of playing it with my friends. I got it. No Mercy. But fuck, Tony Hawk. That sucks that they're in the same year. Fuck me. 2001 wasn't nearly as hard for me as 2000 because now we're kind of entering a new era. We have the PS2, the original Xbox is out, the GameCube. Now we have more to play with. 2001, you had Conker's Bad Fur Day, Final Fantasy X. Spoiler, neither of them is even a contender. Jak and Daxter, which I fucking love. That's not a contender. Super Smash Bros. Melee, my runner-up. Great game. But this was one of the easier ones that I had to pick. And my 2001 Game of the Year is Halo Combat Evolved for the original Xbox. I'm an Xbox fan. It all started with Halo. I played so much of this game, just like so many of you did. Halo Combat Evolved, easily my 2001 Game of the Year. Now, 2002, this was when I really started to realize, again, I'm really missing out on a lot of games. I was 19 years old in 2002. I was 18 going on 19 in 02. And if you don't know, in the States, in Alberta, the legal drinking age is 18. So this was like my bar hopping years. I was missing out on a lot of games. And honestly, I worked my way through the list, and the only games I even have to be a contender to be my Game of the Year for this year are Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Metroid Fusion, Metroid Prime, and Super Mario Sunshine. It's not going to be Vice City. It's not going to be Mario Sunshine. I think Mario Prime is fine, or pardon me, Metroid Prime is fine. But yeah, my 2002 Game of the Year trophy goes to Metroid Fusion, and I only played that a few months ago. Otherwise, probably would have gone to. I mean, I'm not in love with Vice City, Sunshine, or Prime. Maybe Sunshine. But it doesn't matter. Sorry, I'm taking another drink of my beer there. It's hot here. Doesn't matter because luckily I did play Metroid Fusion since then. And Metroid Fusion for the GBA is easily my 2002 Game of the Year. 2003, I just want to state for the record, I have no doubt in my mind Final Fantasy Tactics Advance would be my Game of the Year for 2003 had I played it. But as of now, I haven't played it, so it's not technically eligible. But I know it's eventually going to be. There's still some great games in here, though. 2003, Def Jam Vendetta, F-Zero GX, Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga, Mario Kart Double Dash, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. That's one thing I realized doing this podcast too, is that I'm starting to, not only am I missing out on a lot of games, but I'm patching a lot of holes in my gaming resume too. Because Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic was a big one. And to me, 2003 comes down to Double Dash, Wind Waker, and KOTOR. And I could argue for any of them, depending on my mood. I think I'm going to give it to Double Dash, though. It may technically be the worst of those three games, but I just played so much of it. I have argued to the death that I defend Double Dash. I think they should bring back the dual driver mechanic. And I have a lot of good memories of playing it with my friends. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Mario Kart Double Dash for 2003. But honorable list of honorable mentions to KOTOR and Wind Waker, because those games are dope. 2004. Now, here's the thing. I'm starting to realize the list of releases is getting a lot longer now. Like, honestly, it probably took me less time to do 85 to 2003 than it did for me to take 2004 on. Like, substantially less time, because now the list of games is just getting so much longer. So my contenders for 2004 are Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Spider-Man 2, which I don't even fuck what anyone says. That's a really good game. Halo 2, and Grand Theft Auto San Andreas. Now, as soon as I saw San Andreas in the G's and Halo 2 in the H's, I knew it was going to be a two-horse race. Paper Mario and Spider-Man are awesome, but Halo and San Andreas they're right there. And Halo would have been a lock until I played San Andreas not too long ago, and it was the first GTA game that ever really tickled my fancy and scratched me the right way, and I really liked it. But mad respect to San Andreas, but I gotta give it to Halo 2. I mean, the hype, I remember the hype around Halo 2, and then all of me and my friends at work getting it like the day it came out. We all played it, we were all talking about it, and just, that was a really special game. So yeah, Halo 2 is my 2004 game of the year. 2005, check this out, man. Doom 3 for the Xbox, Half-Life 2 on Xbox, Super Mario Strikers, Ultimate Spider-Man. Those are all good games. And I thought it was going to be a two-horse race between Doom 3 and Half-Life. I was thinking, like, this is probably what it's going to come down to. But then a little game called Resident Evil 4 popped up. And at that point, this is one of those years that I didn't really struggle with. This slam dunk for me. I think that Doom 3, Half-Life, and especially Super Mario Strikers, fucking great game. Resident Evil 4 is a contender for, like, my top 5 games of all time list. I adore that game. Easily my game of the year for 05 is Resident Evil 4 for the GameCube. God, I love that game. 2006 was easy. Honestly, this might have been the easiest one of the more modern years. The only games that really even came up on my radar were Bully, Fight Night Round 3, and Gears of War. I didn't have to think about it. My 2006 game of the year is Gears of War. I've talked about it a million times how special that game is to me. I love that game. 2007, shit gets a lot tougher. Listen to this. Halo 3, Mario Strikers Charged, Mass Effect, Super Mario Galaxy, BioShock, Rock Band in 2007. Oh, fuck. I mean, Strikers Charged is out. The original Mass Effect is out. I like Mass Effect 2 a lot better. But, like, Halo 3, BioShock, Mario Galaxy, and Rock Band. I have memories, tons of memories of playing all 4 of those games. I adore Halo 3's campaign. I have so much fun playing Rock Band with my friends. I think BioShock's atmosphere is incredible, but yeah, I mean, Mario Galaxy is just... I know I'm a Mario homer, but even by Mario, like, take the Mario rose tinted glasses off, Mario Galaxy is a masterpiece. So, yeah, my 2007 game of the year, I love a lot of those games, but it's got to be Mario Galaxy. Now, 2008, this might be the best year for me, at least as far as games I love, since the SNES, that 94 to 96 era. Listen to these contenders. Dead Space, Fallout 3, Gears of War 2, Left 4 Dead, Mega Man 9, and GTA 4 came out that year. Now, I didn't play a lot of GTA 4. It's not a contender for me, but I know it is a big deal to a lot of people. But listen to the, like, Gears 2, Fallout 3, Dead Space, Left 4 Dead, Mega Man 9. How do I pick? Fuck. You know what? I would love to give this title to Mega Man 9, but I think I gotta give it to Left 4 Dead because I had never been into online gaming. And Left 4 Dead is one of the incredibly rare exceptions to that rule where I hooked up and it tickled me the right way and I loved it. God, I played so much Left 4 Dead. So I hate to leave Gears 2 or Dead Space or Mega Man 9 off the list, but yeah, Left 4 Dead, 2008 Game of the Year. That's a great fucking year. That easily the best year for me since the Super Nintendo. Fucking so good. Now 2009, now indies are slowly starting to make their way into the conversation to go with all these. Listen to this list. Batman Arkham Asylum, Halo 3 ODST, Infamous, Left 4 Dead 2, New Super Mario Bros. Wii, Uncharted 2, and Splosion Man. And I know I'm not going to give Splosion Man my title, but if you never played that, that was one of the first little like indie, is Xbox Live Arcade or whatever, like one of the first smaller indie games I played that I love Splosion Man. But I'm a little shocked by this, but I think I got to go with Batman Arkham Asylum. Like that's just one of those games I never think of when I think of my favorite games ever. But like that was the best superhero game ever made up until that point was Batman Arkham Asylum. That game there's no one that can, if you don't like that game, I don't understand you. Like that game is so good. So Arkham Asylum, 2009 Game of the Year. 2010, the list is short but sweet. Halo Reach, Mass Effect 2, Mega Man 10, Mario Galaxy 2. All due respect to Mega Man and Halo, it comes down to Mario Galaxy 2 and Mass Effect 2 to me. And the thing is I like Mario Galaxy 1 a little more than Mario Galaxy 2, and I like Mass Effect 2 a lot more than I like Mass Effect 1. So for that reason, I'm going to give my 2010 Game of the Year to Mass Effect 2. I have no interest in replaying that trilogy, but I do have some interest in replaying Mass Effect 2. God, I love that game. 2011, for the record, the lists are fairly 2012 is a little slow. Most of the rest of the years are pretty good moving forward now. 2011, Gears of War 3, Batman Arkham City, Dead Space 2, Super Mario 3D Land, Skyrim, and Minecraft. And I know some of you are going to be like, oh, that game sucks. It's for babies. That game makes no sense. You just need to pull the stick out of your ass and have some fun. My 2011 Game of the Year, and it's easy despite the stiff competition, is Minecraft. It's fucking video game Lego. To this day, I just don't play it because I know I'm going to get addicted to it again. But I fucking love Minecraft. Now, in comparison to that list, 2012 was not great. I looked around to see if I missed anything. Nothing jumped out at me. The only games that really popped out were Mass Effect 3, New Super Mario Bros. U, and Far Cry 3 for 2012. And to be honest, I didn't really have to think about it. It was Far Cry 3. That was not a great year for me for new games. Nothing there jumped out. Compared to 2013, 2012, Far Cry 3, almost by default. Almost. Not really even a competition. Far Cry 3. Now listen to 2013. Keep in mind, Grand Theft Auto 5 came out in 2013, and that's not on my list because I'm not really a big GTA guy. But aside from Grand Theft Auto 5, listen, Last of Us, Animal Crossing New Leaf, BioShock Infinite, Pokemon X and Y, The Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds, Fire Emblem Awakening. Whoa. Like, it kind of comes down to Fire Emblem Awakening, Link Between Worlds, and Last of Us. But I mean, it's Last of Us. Of course, 2013 is Last of Us. But I will, like, if you were to plug the Fire Emblem Awakening or The Legend of Zelda Link Between Worlds into most other years, they would probably win. It's just Last of Us is one of the greatest video games ever made, in my opinion. So that's my 2013 Game of the Year. 2014, this was one of those ones that was like a layup. I really didn't have to think about. Honorable mentions to Dragon Age Inquisition, which I thought it's the only Dragon Age game I've played, and I loved Inquisition. Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, awesome game. Infamous Second Son, great game. But they're all runner-ups to the iconic Mario Kart 8 for the Wii U. You all knew that was coming. Mario Kart 8 is the tits. I'm not going to lock it in pen as my second favorite game ever after Super Mario World. Pretty fucking close, though. 2015, you got Fallout 4, Rise of the Tomb Raider, Splatoon, Witcher 3, Ori and the Blind Forest. I like all of those games a lot. This one came down to Ori and the Blind Forest and Splatoon for me. And I'm going to go with Splatoon because as much as I like Ori and the Blind Forest, you beat it and you're kind of done. I played a ton of fucking Splatoon on my Wii U. I loved that game. So, yeah. It's not even that close. I like Ori a lot, but yeah, my 2015 game of the year is Splatoon. Kind of a layup. 2016 wasn't that hard. Gears of War 4, which honestly is probably one of my least favorite Gears games. Overwatch, Ratchet and Clank, Uncharted 4, and Pokemon Go. And to me, it comes down to Uncharted and Overwatch, and I'm going to give it to Overwatch because I actually used to be really into playing Overwatch. But I want to give a special shout out to Pokemon Go because when I was doing my homework for this episode, I didn't see that winning game of the year anywhere. And whether you like Pokemon or not, whether you like mobile games or not, I didn't get super into Pokemon Go, but I don't think the effect remember the summer of Pokemon Go and you couldn't do anything without fucking just seeing groups of people outside playing Pokemon Go. That was a fucking worldwide phenomenon. So my pick is Overwatch. But I feel the need to give a special shout out to Pokemon Go because that was a big deal, that game. Now, 2017, this is probably my favorite year since whatever year it was that I had such a hard-on for. 2008. 2008 I thought was great. 2017 was the year of the Switch. It came out. Fucking Cuphead, Hollow Knight, The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Resident Evil 7, Splatoon 2. That is 7 monster fucking games. I think objectively it has to come down to Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild. I have mad love for Hollow Knight. I didn't play it until 2018, but I know it's a 2017 game. And I think Resident Evil 7 is fucking awesome. I'm not going to give it to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe because Mario Kart 8's already won my game of the year. It comes down to Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and I'm giving it to Mario Odyssey because I liked Mario Odyssey more than Breath of the Wild, but Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild are two of the greatest video games ever made, and they came out the same year. That's fucking... Nintendo was firing in 2017, which I think is why the Switch is doing so well even to this year, because of that launch year for them. 2018, Celeste and The Messenger for indies. Spider-Man on the PS4, God of War on the PS4, Smash Brothers Ultimate on the Switch, and then Red Dead Redemption 2 is in there. I haven't really played a lot of Red Dead, so it won a lot of Game of the Years. It's not mine. I originally, in 2018, said my Game of the Year was Hollow Knight because I really fell in love with Hollow Knight, but I'm not technically allowed to give it to it because it did come out in 2017, and now that I've played God of War, I don't know how I don't give the title to God of War. So 2018... goes to, for what my money is, probably the best PS4 game in the entire library, and that is God of War. That game is fucking incredible. 2019, at this point I'm doing Remember the Game. Some of you might already know what my game of the year from 2019 was because I did say it on the podcast back in the day, but the contenders are Pokemon Sword and Shield, which I like a lot. I don't care what people say that hate on it. Slay the Spire, the unofficial official game of Remember the Game Industries. Gears 5, which is awesome. And Fire Emblem Three Houses. And I like all 4 of these games a lot. Slay the Spire. I used to say Fire Emblem Three Houses was my game of the year for that year. And I remember I was on tour for comedy for 3 weeks when Three Houses came out. And I basically just played it all day. And then went to my comedy shows at night. So as much as I love Slay the Spire, and Slay the Spire would rank higher in my favorite games ever than Fire Emblem Three Houses would, I'm going to give my 2019 Game of the Year to Fire Emblem. That game was a really big special game for me in 2019. So, but God, man, love to Slay the Spire. And then that brings us to 2020. We did an episode on this a few months ago. My personal runner-ups for Game of the Year for 2020 were Doom Eternal, Last of Us Part 2, and Ghost of Tsushima. But my 2020 Game of the Year was Final Fantasy VII Remake. We've talked about that ad nauseum. And that brings us to this year, 2021. And I don't think it's fair to even try to pick a game of the year for 2021 yet when we're only 6 months into the year. And we know that the back half of this year is loaded with so many big games. Deathloop is a contender for me. Metroid Dread is a contender for me. Back 4 Blood is a contender for me. Halo Infinite is going to be awesome. As of now, my 2021 game of the year is Returnal. I don't think it's going to go wire to wire. I hope it doesn't, frankly, because as much as I like Returnal, that would mean all these games I'm excited about in the fall let me down. So right now it's Returnal, but we'll see when the year is over whether or not I manage to hold on to that title. Holy cow. Now, this is why I didn't read any comments. This was almost an hour long, and I ripped through every year from 85 to 2021. And I'm telling you, seriously, this was maybe my favorite episode of Expansion Pass I've ever done, at least as far as a research perspective. Going back and looking at it every year and just seeing where, like, we went from Mario Brothers on the NES to some of those lists of even 2020, Doom Eternal, Ghost of Tsushima, Last of Us Part 2, Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those are all masterpieces. And those are 35 years from Super Mario Brothers. To see how much the industry has grown in 35 years is wild. And it also highlighted a couple of big years for me. 94 to 96 were fucking just straight fire. And 2008 was a beast of a fucking year. And I think we're setting up. I think 2022 will compete with those years. If all the games that are scheduled to come out and live up to snuff. I think that it'll compete. It's going to be special. So, yeah, we may look back at some individual years down the road. I'm going to keep this list. It was a lot of homework, but it was a lot of fun to look at these. And now I kind of have an idea of what years I would like to dive into and dedicate a full episode of Expansion Pass to. But shout out to all of you that voted for this topic. My sincere apologies for not being able to remember who suggested it, but great fucking suggestion. I hope you all enjoyed this episode, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Stay cool. Look after each other if you're out there in this heat wave. Make sure nobody fucking bakes. Take care of your dogs. Make sure they have lots of water. If you leave your dog in a fucking car, you should be shot. And then left in a fucking car to die. If you leave your dog in a car in this heat. And I say that, and I don't even know. I'm going to stand by that. Fuck you. You're a piece of shit. But I know that's none of you because hot dogs are smarter than that. Hot dogs don't like hot dogs. Yeah, huh? Huh? You spent $2 on this. Cheers. Thanks again for listening. You can find a full list of every episode of Expansion Pass in the archives at rememberthegamepodcast.com. Our subscriptions start at $2 a month. We offer annual subs that'll save you a month's fees, and 5% of our Patreon income is donated to Extra Life for the Stollery Children's Hospital here in Edmonton. Hundreds of extra podcasts, access to our Discord, the ability to write into the shows, help pick the games we play and cover on the podcast, a shout out, and more. Patreon.com/rememberthegame. Thanks. Cheers. Whatever.